My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This episode is brought to you by Unstoppable. Discover the inspiring true story about Anthony Robles, who defied every expectation to become a national wrestling champion in Unstoppable, a new original movie from Amazon MGM Studios and director William Goldenberg, evoking the excitement and camaraderie of classic sports dramas and thrilling wrestling matches. Unstoppable features an all-star ensemble cast, including Jharrel Jerome, Jennifer Lopez, Don Cheadle, Michael Pena, and Bobby Cannavale. Watch Unstoppable now, exclusively on Amazon Prime Video.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Hello and welcome to Islanders Anxiety from Lighthouse Hockey and the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Dan Saracini. Joining me on this Sunday afternoon by Zencaster is my friend Michael Leboff. And Mike, we went pretty hard on the Islanders on Thursday in an emergency podcast following their pretty depressing loss to the Philadelphia Flyers. Things were a lot more pleasant on Saturday with a win over the San Jose Sharks on Brent Sutter Ring of Honor night. But as we predicted, the win itself, while totally nice and fine, doesn't really change their predicament, where they are in the standings, or change any of the context of what had gone previously this season. And turns out, for good reason, you actually didn't watch any of the game at all. So, and I'll tell you right now, you didn't miss much, aside from the ceremony, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, you didn't miss much. The Islanders did what they have not done all that often this year, which was take care of business against a very bad and apparently very sick team as well. So, yeah. So how are you living with yourself after missing such a momentous occasion as this 4-1 win over the San Jose Sharks on Saturday night?
Yes. Well, I'll say this. I don't want to give myself too much credit because it was Emily and my 5th anniversary, our wedding anniversary on Saturday. But without that even registering in my head, when they lost that game to the Flyers, I told myself I'm not watching the game against the Sharks, no matter what. Like they could have been honoring Wade Dublowitz before the game, and I would have maybe watched the ceremony and then turned it off. I promised myself don't watch the game, and I know it's a funny thing to say when you have a podcast about a sports team and you're like, well, I didn't watch the one game we're going to talk about. But I actually do think that if you've been listening to the show, it's not as much about the going over the tape or anything like that in a game, and more about how does this make you feel? How does it the Islander fan experience? And I bet you there's a lot of people out there who can relate to that feeling. And the reason I didn't want to watch it was there were really only two ways that game was going to make me feel. I was either going to be extremely mad that they lost to a terrible team to go 0-3 on this 7-game homestand that was positioned to save their season. So it was either extreme bitterness and anger, or I would be totally unmoved by a win, because that is, you said, they had to take care of business. And there's still so much more work that they have to do, that this win doesn't matter. It might as well have been one of those, in a lost season, and there's like a game in the middle of March, and
Right.
the Islanders play another team that's out of the playoffs at home, and they win. It could just ring as hollow as that. So the Islanders now have 2 games ahead of them this week. They're well spaced out. They've got the Blue Jackets on Monday, and then they have they have 3 games actually.
Yeah.
Right? Because they got the back-to-back, but they have a bunch of time off. So yeah, I'm gonna try my best not to watch that Blue Jackets game, but I do think I'll end up watching it, because if they win that one, maybe some things break their way. They can salvage the homestand and get those. We said at the beginning, 10 points would be really, the bare minimum, and I even said I'll let them go with 9 in case they lose that opener to the Senators. So there's still a chance to make it a very successful homestand if you can go 5-2, and at that point you're looking at them in a good run and whatever. But there's so much more work to be done, that this game felt like it could be totally meaningless, a game that, aside from the Brent Sutter ceremony, could go down as one of the most forgettable wins of this Islanders era, depending on how things shake out Monday, Friday, and Saturday. And it shouldn't be lost on anyone that on the other side of this homestand, they run a gauntlet into the frozen face-off break with the Flyers, Lightning, Panthers, Golden Knights, Jets, and Wild. So it's so that there's so much work left to be done, and it doesn't look good at all right now, that that's why I didn't watch it. That's why I wasn't even tempted. I snuck one peek at the score early, and I saw like they were out shooting the Sharks by a bunch, and I remembered that Alex Georgiev's in goal, and he's always has good games against the Islanders, seemingly, except I think his last one against the Avalanche, when he was playing for the Avalanche. But I was like, oh, they're gonna get shut out by Georgiev on Brent Sutter night and lose 1-0. Not too dissimilar to what they just did to the Senators. And then I saw the final score a couple hours later, and I didn't feel a sense of relief. I didn't feel a sense of happiness. I was totally just, it could have been a preseason game for all I in my world. So and that's what this team has done to us this season, right?
Yeah.
So because it shouldn't be like that, but that's where we are, and it's their fault, not ours.
Yeah, definitely. And if it makes you feel any better, and we'll get into this obviously in the second half, I have no hope that they're going to win against the Blue Jackets on Monday.
Oh, no, not at all.
At all.
Why would you?
Yeah, right. Two teams flowing in complete opposite directions. One is rising from the ashes from very real trauma that they experienced over the summer, and putting together an unlikely and frankly a very uplifting playoff run that I know I'm hoping that they make, and other people are hoping that they make as well. And the other one is taking any goodwill that it had before the season and basically just stomping it out like a old stale cigarette. Like, it's just, there's nothing connecting these two teams other than the fact that they both played in the same division.
That's a great analogy for this group of Islanders. It's just they're an old stale cigarette. Except when you said that, it just clicked in my head. Like that is what this team is right now.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So, well, there's our title. I like that. And then not only do I not think they're going to beat the Blue Jackets on Monday, but then they have, like you said, a back-to-back against the Flyers and Hurricanes. We'll talk about all that in the second half. We're going to talk about Brent Sutter's ceremony as well. And we are going to have only our second ever edition of Master Penn's Theater coming up in the second half, because there was some news coming out of Pittsburgh this week. But let's talk about the game. You're not wrong. It was a very forgettable game against a game, but incredibly undermanned Sharks team. Apparently, again, they were experiencing like a team-wide flu or something going around. Marc-Andre Vlasic was apparently Marc-Edouard Vlasic. I'm sorry, was apparently like really sick when he was playing. And I mean, you could have fooled me because they're the Sharks, right? Like, they never looked that good. But after the lengthy ceremony, we had Alex Romanov was back, by the way. And Mark Gatcomb was still in. He had been assigned to Bridgeport, but he really didn't go anywhere, and he came right back. 0-0 in the first, but basically it was all Islanders. And I had that same exact thought that you had, which is like, Alex Georgiev is going to do it again. He's going to do what he always did to the Islanders when he played for the Rangers, which is just steal games while his team is completely getting outplayed. But there was a goal that came off the board. I forget why. Who cares? But then the second, it was all Islanders again, and a turnover near the blue line sends Matt Barzal off. He lost the puck for a second, but he still scored a nice goal. It was kind of funny. It was one of those goals where like it looks sick when you first see it. You're like, oh, I can't believe it, and then you watch it in slow motion, and you're like, it was kind of, I don't want to say he got lucky, but he kind of lost the puck and he just kind of shoveled it in, and it worked either way. So I was 1-0 Islanders. Then Barclay Goodrow scored from the wall, a goal that I'm sure Marcus Hogberg would like back, although Hogberg was terrific. We'll get back to him in a second. Ties the game. Palmieri, who has been kind of MIA for a while now, beautiful seam pass to Brock Nelson, who kind of flips it up and over, makes it 2-1 Islanders. And then just before the end, Noah Dobson from distance, thought Anders Lee got a tip on it, might have gotten off the defenseman in front. Doesn't matter. It's 3-1 Islanders. They almost never get that just before the end of the period goal. So that was kind of nice to see. Also nice to see, the Sharks came out with a lot of jump in the third period. You thought, oh, great, here we go. They're going to make it 3-2 in a minute. But Ryan Pulock actually put that slap shot to good use for once and makes it 4-1 into the far corner. And from then on, it was a little sloppy, but otherwise, everybody just kind of seemed to want to go home at that point. Hogberg made 18 saves. He was very, very good again. If you're going to start doing like, oh, is there a controversy? Please shut the hell up. I don't want to hear this. Ilya Sorokin has needed a break for a long time. Here comes Hogberg. Why they didn't play him before, I don't know, but it's like now 3 or 4 games in a row where he's played totally fine. He can spell Sorokin. It's okay. So we could let Semyon Varlamov get better. You could let Sorokin rest, play Hogberg. It's fine. It seems so far so good. Georgiev made 27 saves, and again, he looked like he was going to steal it, but didn't really work out. At some point, the pressure was just too much. Once again, the Islanders had all of 1 penalty to kill and all of 1 power play. They did go 1 for 1 on the penalty kill, so that was nice. It was a nice night for everybody except for the Sharks. That's about it. UBS Arena was packed. Place did not sound like a food court with an ice rink in it, which we made very clear it sounded like on Thursday and often does when we talked about our emergency episode. But it was a very pleasant evening for everybody at the old barn. And again, everybody went home happy except for David Warshavsky and the Sharks. But ultimately, this team is still second to last in the Eastern Conference. They still have 100 teams to climb over for the playoffs. A bunch of teams there chasing one. The Flyers won on Saturday. The Rangers won on Saturday. The Senators won a terrific game. If you watch that, it was Hockey Day in Canada. If you got to watch the Senators Bruins game, it was great. The Bruins are up 2 goals with like 4 minutes to go. The Senators scored. Then they scored again with like 11 seconds left to tie it. And then they won in a shootout. So that was a great game, but didn't help the Islanders at all. But it was good. The Habs, on the other hand, blew a 3-0 lead and lost 7-3 to the Leafs, which would suck too. And so, yeah, it was nice that it was a nice game. You could enjoy it as an Islanders fan. You could watch it and leave happy. But, one look at the standings on Sunday morning reminds you of what this season's been like and where they're at and all of the problems that they have when they're not playing somebody like the San Jose Sharks. So, I don't know, like, regardless of the game itself, like, what is your attitude? Like, we've had a few days to calm down from Thursday's debacle against Philly. I mean, what's your kind of overall take on this team right now? Has it changed at all? Again, not with this game. This game didn't change anything, but like, have you had time to think about, or has anything kind of new popped up in your head since our emergency podcast on Thursday?
Oh, no, I still feel the exact same way. And part of it is because something you said earlier in the episode, which is that they're going up against a bunch of teams like Columbus and Ottawa, Montreal, Philadelphia, right. The Red Wings now. I want to talk a little bit about the Rangers, but I'll save them for later. Detroit. These are teams that are galvanized. They are rallying around something. They're completely. We used to talk about how when you watch like the Islanders, even when they were good, you'd watch the Islanders and then you'd watch a team like Tampa Bay or during their salad days, or Colorado or Edmonton, and we'd say, oh man, it just looks like a completely different sport. Right. And now it looks like a different sport when you watch a Blue Jackets game. And the Blue Jackets aren't very good this season. Like they're
Right.
not they're having a good season, a very uplifting season for them, and certainly are exceeding expectations pretty handily right now.
Mm.
And the reason it looks like, but they're not an elite team by any stretch, but the reason it looks so good or it looks so different from when you watch them compared to the Islanders is that team they work really hard. They're
Mm.
having fun playing hockey. They are enjoying the battle. They like the second the puck drops, they're skating and buzzing all over the place. They're working towards a specific goal together. Everyone's pulling in the same direction. And then you turn an Islander game on, and it looks like everybody on the Islanders has their own agenda. It's really strange. Like um, you have Casey Cizikas, who's out there trying to still like win the 2021 Eastern Conference Final. It looks like he thinks he's going out there, and he's still Casey Cizikas from that era, and he's supposed to do that. And then you have someone like Brock Nelson, who he in a hilarious fashion passes Brent Sutter in front of Brent Sutter on the all-time scoring list.
Right.
Patrick Waugh calls him a true Islander. I've got all the time in the world for Brock Nelson, but he's the past two, since he got named to that Team USA, he's just been a different sort of player. I think Kyle Palmieri, similar story as Brock. Like they both kind of, their form has fluctuated together. And it looks like they're both kind of just going through the motions and playing to stay healthy in case they get traded. Then you have like Ryan Pulock, who's similar to Cizikas. Like I think Ryan Pulock thinks of himself as a very different player than what he's actually playing on the ice. Noah Dobson is playing to we always say he plays with his cell phone in his hand. It looks like he's playing with his phone in his pocket. I don't know what he's out there to do, but it's like he's out there to look cool or be one of the guys and whatever. So it feels like everybody has a different agenda on the Islanders. When you watch these other teams, I mean, when they played the Flyers the other night, the Flyers were out there to do one thing, that was to just suck the will out of the Islanders. And we haven't seen that enough. And maybe Saturday night looked like that. From what I can gather, it does seem like they just kind of took what was given to them, which was they feasted on a depleted Sharks team.
Right.
But that was their 8th win at home this season. They're 8-13 overall. The two overtime losses as well.
That's pathetic.
So yeah,
That's really awful.
It's really awful. And they have so much more work to do before we can have a conversation here where we're like, oh wow, like they and honestly we've probably jumped the gun on it a few times this season just because it's not all that enjoyable to every Sunday afternoon or evening just get together and be like, God, these guys are driving me nuts and they're making me sad and they're ruining my mood and making me space out at dinner thinking about Joel Hofer pitching a shutout against us, right? Like it's I don't want to do that. So maybe when they have a week where they lose a few in a row and then they beat the Buffalo Sabres, you're like, oh wow, like maybe that's the sign. And then but we all know what's coming next. And that's how I feel right now. They're not to be trusted at all. If you want to have Islander colored glasses on, you say, well, they've won 4 of 6. I know they lost those first 2 games of the homestand, but if you step back, they've won 4 of their last 6 games. And, if they win these next 2, they really could be right back in it. And I would suggest that, yeah, they could do that. And I would be the first one to jump right back on it and be excited and think, oh man, if they could just find a way to beat the Hurricanes and or get a 3 out of 4 points against the Hurricanes and Avalanche, that we're right back in this thing. But we all know that they're likely not going to beat Columbus or Philadelphia, first of all. And even if they do, we've seen the same tired. We called it the joke isn't funny anymore. Like we've seen this joke before. So until they can prove to us that it's not a joke, that they're actually like a serious group and not one that's totally fat and happy and okay with winning 1 game a week. Oh well, what do you? We already won our game this week. What do you want? What more do you want from us? We won at home too. Like you guys are asking for more than a Saturday night win at home. So until they can kind of make us look like idiots for thinking that way, I'm not gonna get the juices, the same kind of juices flowing, until they can stop this tired act. And they're likely, like they'll be favored against Columbus and Philly for some reason. By the way, the betting market, like money comes in on the Islanders quite more often than you think. Um, right before games. So like they might be favorites against Columbus. Oh, they will be favorites, probably not big favorites at all against Columbus and Philadelphia. But then you look at the games on the other side. So even if they do win those 2 games, man, like they're going to be underdogs basically for their last 8 games before the break. So
Right.
yeah, like it's really going to be hard work, and this shouldn't be, they shouldn't be in the position where they need to completely upend the odds to have the season still alive going into this break. But
Yeah.
they've just farted around all season, and they farted around with our emotions, and I don't want to let them do that anymore. So I'm trying to look at it as I'm trying to be as unattached to this team as possible, and it's really hard for me to do that going into these games this week.
Right, because even if they do that, even if they do put together a string and like, win a bunch of games, let's say they win the next 4 games in this homestand, and then like, they squeeze out one against the Lightning or the Panthers on the other side, or whoever it is coming up, you still have got so much work to do to get into a wild card spot, and these other teams aren't going to wait for you. Like, and this is a problem the Islanders have had for years, where like they act as if they're the only ones that matter. It's like nobody else is out here trying to win games. No, they're trying to win games too. So like, if they beat Columbus, that's a big deal, because Columbus is right now, they're in the 7th spot. They've got 51 points. The Islanders have 43. If you make it 45, then you're only 6 points out from there. The Senators have 50. So I don't know who they're playing, but like, let's hope they lose or whatever. So like you're still kind of in that mix, but even if they win, the Penguins still have 46 points. So even if they still lose, the Islanders still aren't going anywhere. They're just made themselves a little bit closer mathematically to a wild card spot, but really it doesn't change much. The scenery isn't changing. You're still in the same spot. And even if they would have to put together a long, long, long string of wins to even kind of get into where these other teams are. And we talked about Montreal before. We talked about Boston and Ottawa before. The Senators have leapfrogged the Bruins into that final wildcard spot. But like, Montreal has put together a great run. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10, and people are acting as if they've already won the Stanley Cup. No, you have to put together a run like that to even get in the conversation. And I just don't see it in this team. And it's funny that you talk about like the watching them playing, and it looks like another teams are playing different sport. We've talked about that not just this season, but before too. The thing that occurred to me while watching the Sharks game, ironically, a game that they ended up winning, is that for years, the Islanders prioritized not speed, but structure and defense, and like timely scoring, counter punching, getting the high danger chances and making the most of them. That was the Islanders' MO for those first 3 seasons under Barry Trotz. And it netted them a 100-point season, a first-round sweep, and then 2 trips to the semifinals. So it worked pretty successfully. Now we're 3.5 seasons past that, and this team has almost no structure whatsoever to speak of. They are not nearly as committed to defense as they used to be, and even when they do get high danger chances, they usually miss them. They had one the other day that against the Sharks that they missed. Somebody missed it wide or whatever it was. Maybe that was the Sharks. I'm not sure, but like they don't have that same sort of juice that they used to have, where they were constantly getting 2-on-1s. I mean, how many 2-on-1s did Matt Barzal have with Jordan Eberle or Anthony Beauvillier or any of these other guys? Like, it was just a crazy time where just they would play good defense, get a 2-on-1, and they would score. Like, they just don't play that way anymore. And so they are still hanging on. It's okay to not have fleet foot speed if you have those other elements, but all those other elements are gone. And, oh yeah, by the way, they still aren't a fast team, whereas it feels like every other team in the NHL, particularly now in the Eastern Conference, does have that amount of foot speed. I mean, the Sharks are a fast team. They can't score. They don't really have a lot of talent, but they certainly are a lot faster. We saw the Flyers aren't considered a pretty fast team, but they sure as hell looked like one against the Islanders on Thursday. The Senators, we know, are a fast team. They just skate. That is the way the game is played now. And this team just ain't it. So if they are going to put together a run, they have to do something to, get some consistent wins going here. In the fact that despite the fact that they don't have that sort of team speed. Anthony Duclair was meant to bring some of that speed, but then he got hurt. Hasn't really shown a ton of speed. Hopefully he got back on the score sheet yesterday with an assist, but still he's just one guy. How the hell is he supposed to, change the entire makeup of team speed on here? So it's funny that I thought of this while during a game where they were actually winning. And I thought to myself, yeah, this is fine. But really, again, I was already thinking ahead to Columbus and thinking like that team is going to outwork them. Yep. They're going to out-hit them. They're going to be faster than they are. They're going to have the will to win. This team is they're just not going to do anything again. I mean, it might be pretty bad, honestly. Like it might not be a fun game.
Yeah, and we're talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets,
right?
All due respect, right? But like, it's exactly that. You're looking at a team that is cohesive, fighting the same mission,
and on the same
galvanized,
page.
right? And against a team that is, as I said before, it seems everyone has their own agenda and is playing in a completely different world than the person next to them.
Right.
I feel like if you asked Ryan Pollock what the Islanders' record was, he'd be like, "Oh, what are we, like 18 games over 500? Like just cruising to a playoff spot?" Because that's how this team plays. Sometimes they're playing as if they're the team that has an excuse to just not show up in a night and be like, "Look, it happens. Every couple of weeks you're gonna have a dud. We're lucky we banked so much equity in the standings early on with that great start." I want to be like, yeah, that's not you. You guys are the exact opposite team. You're the team that has to take advantage of when those other teams have duds because you have completely squandered any opportunity for that. But it seems like that's how they all play. Like that's the attitude this team plays with right now. And it's like line to line. I will say, like Matt Barzal, Anders Lee, Bo Horvat, they do seem, and they have for the whole season. I think JG Pajot is another one, and Simon Holmstrom. They do seem like they understand where the Islanders are, and it's kind of pissing them off.
Yeah.
And then the next line comes out, and as I said, it really does look like some of these lines are playing in 2021. They think like they've been brainwashed to think that.
Right.
And it's really infuriating because the Islanders will have a good shift, and it's to the point now where I'm starting to get mad at like Butch and Brendan and Thomas Hickey when they'll say, "Oh man, that was this has been a good start for the Islanders. They've had the puck in the offensive zone for the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game. They're getting some good chances, and I just want them to tell them, or for them to acknowledge, be like, but that hasn't mattered at all this season. So we'll see if it's almost as if they shouldn't even editorialize during the broadcast. Brendan should just literally be black and white saying what's going on in the game without editorializing it at all, because there is no such thing as momentum with the Islanders. The Islanders are a team that is completely binary right now. There's no greater force surrounding this team. Whereas for the other team, it does, right? The other teams can have momentum going their way. And we saw that in the Flyers game, especially. Like they just were building and building and building, and it snowballed out of control on the Islanders. Whereas the Islanders, they could be doing that exact thing. They could be playing really well, and then they give up a goal, or they take a penalty and give up a goal, and all that good work is completely undone. And they're like, well, nevertheless, like let's go home.
Yeah.
So and when you're going up against a team when you're competing with teams like Ottawa and Columbus, Philadelphia, that are built on that, it's so annoying. It's so embarrassing to be on the other side. It was that game against the Flyers was embarrassing because I watched a team embarrass the Islanders, and the Islanders are, my entire life, have been a scrappy underdog team for the large part of my life, right? They are the team that has been a thorn in other teams' side because at least they're going to work hard. They're going to show up and try their best, even if they're counting on guys like David Ulstrom or whoever to do much more than he's able to. But you could at least rest your hat on going into Nassau Coliseum and saying, I'm going to see an honest effort. And there's been nothing honest. This team has been completely dishonest with us this entire season. And that's not just their play on the ice, but off what they've been saying off the ice. So seeing them go up against a bunch of teams that are honest with themselves and their fans and everything is gonna it's not gonna be a fun watch unless this team has a complete transformation overnight. And you're just hoping for a miracle at this point, right? Because
Right.
there's no indication that that's coming.
Yeah.
Because when there was an indication that it was coming, hell, a week ago, that was the big indicator that this team was finally got its act together. 3 wins on the road against a really good team in Vegas at the time. They beat Utah on the road in a comeback win, a gutsy kind of hold on for dear life win against the Bruins, a team they're competing with. And that was supposed to be the indicator, and it was a complete lie. It was a bold-faced lie. And now, okay, they beat the Sharks.
Yeah.
Are we? That's what's supposed to get us to buy back in? Absolutely not.
Right.
So, yeah, they've got so much work to do, and it's so annoying.
It is.
It's this. I kept saying the word agitated. This
Mm.
This season has been irritating and it's not just the Islanders, like the entire kind of
Oh yeah.
NHL, the way the NHL season has unfolded. It's almost as if every little result, every little storyline has just been there to nag at us.
Mm.
And that includes, what I do want to talk about the Rangers in a little bit, but that's part of it.
Yeah. Oh, definitely for sure. I want to talk real quick about Ryan Pulock though, because you mentioned him before, and again he did have a goal in that game, and we've had it out with him before, and I'm a fan. Like I was there when he was drafted because that was the draft in Prudential Center. I was there live. Shout out to listener Les who was there with me who I met that day, and we hung out and this all day thing, and we watched it. And I've always wanted to like this guy, and he always had that. Came in with the reputation of having that 100-mile-an-hour slap shot. Jeff Merrick loves to go on and on about his 100-mile-an-hour slap shot. And at this point, I hate he had the wedding of the century this summer. Yeah, the Chainsmokers were there. They took over the entire city of Venice or whatever it was for their crazy wedding. I want to like this guy. I want him to be, a guy I look back on and was like, yeah, that was a great, he was a great player for the Islanders all these years. But I don't know, man. Like that goal last night was the kind of goal that I want to see Ryan Pulock score 25 times a season. Like just a nice, hard, directed laser shot from the point that goes into the far corner just outside the goalie skate, and it gives the Islanders an important lead, and it looks good. And it just hasn't materialized like that. He had 10 goals, 9 goals, and 10 goals in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. So the last Tavares year and then the first 2 Trotz years, we had 10, 9, and 10 goals. And that's fantastic. That's 19 goals. In the 5 seasons since then, he's had 20 altogether. Like he had 2 goals in the 21 season and then 5 goals, 5 goals, 5 goals. And now he's got 3. So he's on pace for another 5-goal season. Like I want this guy. He's got this incredible weapon. It should be used more often, but more often than not, he just misses the net or he's just not taking shots at all. And I don't know. It just feels very, very disappointing. Like
It is.
what his reputation has not come to pass, and it's very annoying. And I'm not saying he's a bad player. Obviously, defensively, he's been very good in his career. But seeing that goal last night again, much like the game itself, and how little effect it has on changing the season narrative, changing their place in the standings. All I can think of is like, yeah, that's the goal I want to see all the time. Where has it been? It doesn't exist. We don't see it all that often. And it's very, very frustrating. Like you said, it's annoying. It's very annoying.
Yeah, it's not too dissimilar to the conversation we have a lot about Lamoriello and Wah.
Yeah.
Which is
right.
Where are the guys like we signed up for?
Right.
Here, right? Like where's the ruthless GM who wouldn't stand for this crap ever
right.
until he got here? Where's the fiery goalie,
stick breaking goalie?
Yeah, exactly. Who fought Chris Osgood and was telling Jeremy Roenick he couldn't hear him because he got his rings in his ears.
Right.
Where's
the
that
dude who fired Robbie Fatorik 5 games with 5 games left in the season?
Yeah. Where are those guys? And it's I think the same with Ryan Pulock. It's we drafted this guy. He showed up for a bit. He had really good seasons with Trotz and playing with Adam Pelech, and he seems to just have stalled completely. And yeah, he's 30 now. He signed the big contract, so maybe there's just a lack of, I don't know, incentive. Who knows? It's hard to get into players' heads, but it seems and Pelech and Pulock together, that should just be a very reliable pair, solid second
Right.
pairing, a pair you just don't mind having out on the ice in any situation, and it's been anything but that. And he had that. We were talking about Polak a couple weeks ago when the Islanders kind of
Right.
blipped back to life. He looked much better, and as has been the case with any good thing that's happened this season with the Islanders, it just makes you a little bit more mad because you're like, well, yeah, that's the guy who's not supposed to be here for 6 games out of the first 50. He's the guy who's supposed to be here for like 44. You're supposed to be the inverse. You're supposed to have
Right.
the 6. Man, one of those nights for Ryan Polak. When you're saying, oh man, it's one of those nights for Ryan Polak, it's when he's been good, which is
Right.
not what you want. And yeah, it's just real frustrating because there's more to give. Like you say, he has this weapon. He's shown flashes of it, and other than that, it's just been. You could say all you want about Scott Mayfield. He makes loud mistakes. He got walked the other day by like, I don't know if it was like Joel Farabee or Scott Lawton, someone on the Flyers, and that's like the third time that's happened to him in a matter of weeks. But the one thing about Scott Mayfield, at least is like he's going to show up. He's going to do everything he can to help the Islanders win, almost to a fault. Like he's trying. Sometimes he's just trying too hard. And I wish that you could take some of that from him and give it to some of the other guys on the blue line, because it seems like that's what's missing. And it's not just the blue line. I guess it's everyone on the team. There's just some guys who are doing that. There are some guys who are showing up to the rink and spilling their guts, and then there are other guys who are like, wow, that was pretty cool what that guy's doing. Just I don't want to do it. And there's like I said, there's just no indicator that attitude is going to change. So until there is, this is like the tone of the season. It's a lost cause, and until it's not, we're kind of like just floating out in the middle of the sea, no winds. What are they called? The doldrums. We're just like in the doldrums trying to. And the captains of the ship are like, don't worry, we believe in everyone on this crew, and we're not going to have to start eating each other just yet. So just wait for the wind. But instead of like charting a new course or anything, or just figuring out a new plan, they're like, we're the fan base is like, let's start thinking about another option here. Like maybe we'll get some oars out or lifeboats and start sailing out in different directions. And the captain of the ship's like, nah, let's just see if the hockey gods will put some wind in our sails and blow us perfectly on course, because that sounds like a better plan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I forget who it was. It might have been Nelson. Was like, oh yeah, we believe in this team, and it's like, yeah, I don't know about that.
Brock, I can like, I watch it. I love you, man, and I'm watching you play, and you were playing like the exact opposite. That you guys are don't believe in one another at all.
Right. No, you're right. It does seem like that, but they have a different. They what they think they're doing and what they're doing are two different things.
And so now to kind of just take this in a different direction, there are other teams who say that. Like teams say that all the time, right? They say it all season long, and during the Rangers stretch of the crisis that it's what's so frustrating about all of this was the hockey world was so infatuated with the Rangers' demise and making plans for the rebuild, and do they need to send out another letter, and this season's over, they're giving up on it, all this shit. And you, me, and every Islander fan knew exactly how this was going to go. They were going to get a break, they were going to start winning some games, and the next thing you know, like they're going to be playing the third string goalie for the Capitals or the fourth string goalie for the Hurricanes in round one and win, and we'll wake up and they'll be in the Eastern Conference Final and sick to our stomachs again, because that's how this stuff works. And what's frustrating is the Rangers have done it. Like they've said all this stupid hockey cliche shit about how they're not going to give up. They're together. The answers are in this room, and all this shit. And you hear them say it, and you're like, well, fuck, it's going to work out for them. Even if they're just
still feels like it is, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And they're speaking the same coach speak, player speak that we hear from the Islanders. But when Noah Dobson says, yeah, I don't know, it's like inexcusable what we did, we just got to get better. It sounds like he's just ticking a box to get out of the locker room. And the other, and I'll say, like when Chris Kreider says it, it sounds the same thing, but you know that the Rangers are going to actually go out and do it. Even if they don't mean to, even if it's just because Igor Shesterkin makes 42 saves and they go 3 for 3 on a power play in a game they don't deserve to win, it's going to work out for them. But they're doing it. Like they're back in this is what I was talking about, how irritating the season's been. yeah, it was fun while the Rangers were spiraling out of control, but the Islanders were also spiraling out of control at the same exact time. And you
Right.
knew one of these teams is going to pick themselves up,
Yeah.
and and they'll be aided by a bunch of luck and whatever, and the other team won't get that luck, and they won't spiral back into control. And we know exactly who those teams are being, and it's played out exactly like that. If you had stopped me, and when the Rangers traded Capo Caco and like they were struggling, all that shit, and who'd they lose to? They got smoked by maybe the Devils or something, and everyone's like, well, that's the last straw. I was like, no, it's not. You guys have no. The last straw for the Islanders was literally game 1 of 82. For you guys, you're gonna be okay. You're the Rangers. Like it works out for you, and it has completely. Like they're back in it, and they've done it by winning like 6 of 8 or something, 6 of 9. Not even anything like super impressive.
They're 6-2-2 right now.
6-2-2 in their last 10. So it's like something teams do every season. Good teams will just go 6-2-2 for like the entire season.
Right.
It's nothing crazy. And that's enough for them to get back in it. Because they didn't fuck around for the first 2 months of the season like we did. They actually started winning games. And it's infuriating to see Ranger fans who were talking about tanking for the first overall draft pick a week ago, not because they don't understand how this works. Like I saw like a Ranger account say, oh man, experienced Rangers hockey. You win a game and you're like, we're back in it, baby. You lose a game. You're like, oh man, what are our chances to win the draft lottery? Like you guys and every other team in the league. That's how everyone thinks. Welcome to the NHL. But they are like completely in this thing now, and they'll make the playoffs. I'm sure they'll win something like 11 of 13 games coming up here and be comfortably in the playoffs. And everyone will forget about that crisis. They'll be talking about how Drury was ruthless and he needed to be, and all the shit that everyone was piling on about this team a couple weeks ago will be spun as a positive. The Trouba trade, the way they treated everyone, and everyone will forget all that shit, and they'll just coast into like the easiest playoff spot imaginable, even if they finish in the second wild card like they did when they played the Thrashers in 2007. And that's the way I'm thinking now, because this team has put me in such a sour mood.
Right.
And I've just been irritated the entire season, and I know a lot of Islander fans feel the same way. Like this season feels like it's just going to end with the Islanders playing completely meaningless games, and we'll watch the Rangers luck box their way to another Eastern Conference final. Even though 2 weeks ago these teams were on completely level footing with one another. Just one actually got their act together.
I mean, hockey people in general have the memories of fruit flies, and it's a lot of times even the smartest people act as if they've never seen hockey before. So like, again, last night, the Habs were up 3-0 on the Leafs in the first period. And it's like, whoa, what's going on? Oh my God, what a disaster. Well, then the Leafs just scored 7 straight goals and won. Like, it's like, yeah, that happens, that can happen. Or when, they're all the people who are like, you can't go for small sample sizes. That's too small. You need a bigger sample size. Meanwhile, if a team jumps out to a 10-0 shot lead, they're like, whoa, look at this chart. Isn't this crazy? Yeah, that's called a small sample size. Like it's it's like the first 5 minutes of the game is literally the small sample size you can possibly have. So people are just idiots. But I agree with you. Like what's going to happen is the Rangers are definitely going to kind of figure that it has felt this whole season as if it's going to happen without the Rangers in the playoffs. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, no, they'll make it. Would it surprise anybody if the Rangers and Bruins just made the playoffs and all the other teams just kind of fell apart and didn't? And it's like, really? So it just makes the most sense.
The Rangers played the Capitals last year in that first round.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, wow, that was just an absolute spanking, without acknowledging the fact that Washington had 2 or 3 regular defensemen in the series. And we're missing half their top 6, and we're just not very good generally. But I think even if Washington wins the President's Trophy, we'll be looking at a similar situation, because that's just how it goes. Like Washington will be 30 points ahead of the Rangers in the standings, but Hunter Shepard will be in goal for them, or Phoenix Copley or someone, right? That's how it works. Yeah. And until same with the Islanders situation, right? Until I'm proven otherwise, that this isn't how the hockey universe and the hockey gods work, I'm not going to believe you. I'm not. I had so many people, not just Islander fans, be like, "Oh no, this is different with the Rangers." It's not. It's just a
No.
different. It's just a different first couple chapters to the same result, and it's the same. Like you said, same thing with when I saw the Habs go up 3-0. Two of my friends who are Habs fans, I was texting them. I was like, you need 3 more goals for this to be comfortable, at least. And they're like, "Oh, this is so great." And yeah, of course, the Leafs score 7 goals in a row. Everyone's celebrating. Big brother versus little brother shit or whatever. And it's that if you can't see that stuff coming, you're not an Islander fan, really. Like you're not experiencing life as an Islander fan. It's the same thing with how they say, you gotta enjoy this. This is so great. What's going on at this place? Dustin Wolf in Calgary. What a story in the Rookie. Anytime I see any story about hockey right now, it just makes me mad. Any feel good story, I don't care. I don't want to feel good about hockey right now because my team is making me feel the opposite, and that's no way to live. I get that. I'm doing a lot of this to myself, but that it's because this stupid team that I'm attached to is making it insufferable to be a part of this league. So
it's just that like it's because they're gonna what they're gonna do is talk as if they're in this thing, and then they're gonna still go out and win 1 game a week,
right?
And not trade anybody at the deadline because they're gonna we're still in it, and it's just gonna be a bunch of hot air that ultimately equals no playoffs. Like it's just, again, like you said, they've been farting around all season long, and nothing was gotten fixed. Again, it's still, again, despite winning on Saturday, it's still the same bottom 6 out there that has been completely a waste the entire season, right? Like, still the same guys. Kyle McLean is still one of the worst players in the NHL this year, but he's still here. Like, he hasn't been sent down to Bridgeport. He hasn't been put on waivers. What are they afraid of? He's going to get picked up by somebody? Like, this guy has accomplished absolutely 0 in 48 games or whatever it is this year. He's not going anywhere. They call up Mark Gatcombe. Okay, well, good for him. Like, what is that going to do? It's not changing anything. So it's going to be a lot. And we're going to keep doing this dance of like, well, that was disappointing. We need to come out with more fire next time. And, well, that was good. It's good to get back on track. And then they have, we should have come out with more fire. It's not like, it's going to be back and forth, and nothing's ever going to change because these guys are who they are. I will say one last thing about the Sharks game itself. The Horvat, Lee, Barzell line, again, like you mentioned before, did look pretty pissed off. And like they look like kind of guys on a mission. Horvat had a couple of good scoring chances. Obviously, Barzell had the goal. So like they look pretty good, and they look like they were interested in winning the game. Everybody else looked kind of more or less the same. So again, playing the Sharks helps. So it all is going to depend. We'll talk about the next couple of games on the other side, but we've done this dance before. By the way, I was right, somewhat justifiably, or somewhat justified, I should say. Brendan said the Islanders are 7-0 on Saturdays this year, so they only win on Saturdays, which is like not helpful, guys. Not really helpful. What if there are 6 other days in the week that you guys are pretty lousy at? So anyway, real quick,
that makes me more mad too. It just makes sense.
Exactly. Real quick, the ceremony for Brent Sutter was great. Really enjoyed it. Great seeing him out there. Great seeing all the other Islanders, retired numbers and Hall of Famers out there. I was expecting a lot more of an alumni presence. I thought this was sort of going to be the kind of like alumni night game of the year. Maybe they're going to have it later on. I don't know. But basically everybody was there except for Dennis Potvin and Billy Smith. Just about everybody else was there. It was great to see Ken Morrow, obviously. Bobby Nystrom looking as fit as usual. Great seeing Dwayne Sutter, dog. He was there. And then I thought to myself, why did they just induct both of these guys at the same time? I don't know. But it was really cool. Brent gave a really great speech. And, this guy hasn't been around the Islanders very, often, but he still says, he was blessed to have been an Islander. And it's, those kinds of feelings that we don't get enough these days. And it was great. Kenny Johnson was there, not in a tuxedo, but in a very nice suit. And it was just fun to see. And, as little fun as this season has been, and is it not as enjoyable as it has been, and probably will not be for the next 40 whatever games. This was a night for Islanders pride, and it was great, and it was great to see, and it's still there. Like these guys are still there, and Brent Sutter is not the kind of guy whose name kind of jumps off the page when you think about the dynasty players, but you look at those numbers, man. He had 600 something games. He had 610 points in 694 games with the Islanders. Like that's pretty damn good, and he was the captain obviously for a number of years there, and was the final link really between the dynasty and the post dynasty guys. And so, he's as worthy in addition to that Hall of Fame as anybody. It was great to see these guys. And, we just, as stupid as it is, this stuff will always get me, and it will always be a way for me to take a breath, remind myself that this team does have a very, very illustrious and wonderful history that gets obscured by disappointing current teams such as this one. And it was really, really cool to see. They did a great job with it. And they, Brent Sutter did say, thank you to the Islanders ownership. You guys are in great hands. And then they showed John Ledecky, and then they showed Lou Lamoriello watching the ceremony. And I'm like surprised they didn't get like booed or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if they showed that in the arena, but it was nice to see. And the fact that they didn't go out and blow it. I think Barzell said something to Shannon Hogan at the end. Like, they talked in the locker room, like, we can't lose this game on Brent Sutter night. Like, we gotta go out and win it. And he gets it. A lot of the Islanders, I think, get it. So it was great. They did a really, really good job. And again, the fact that they won the game made it better. So very pleasant evening. I highly recommend, if you haven't watched it, like you, go back and watch it. The whole thing is maybe 10 minutes long, and the players all sitting there. And it's funny because they were sitting there, and again, I was like, these guys are sitting here. They're going to get cold. They're going to play terribly, but it didn't happen that way. They came out and played really well. So I'm glad to see it. I wonder what they're going to have next. There's been a lot of talk. Should they have more guys this year in the Hall of Fame, or should they do like sort of decades? Have one guy now representing the 90s, one guy representing the 70s, yada yada. I don't care what it is, as long as it's not like another 12 years before you put somebody else in there. Just don't make it 12 years. Even if it's next year, that's better than 12 years from now, whenever they put Kenny Janssen in. So let's make it happen. Let's make it a real thing. And then I thought, well, hopefully, if they add too many guys to that Ring of Honor, they're going to need to redo the whole damn ring. Because they're not going to make the arena longer to accommodate more names. So I don't know how that's going to work, but that's not my problem. It's somebody else's problem. So good job, Islanders game staff, on doing that. And obviously congratulations to Brent Sutter, who was a very worthy addition to the Islanders Hall of Fame. I know you didn't watch it, but any thoughts on the Hall of Fame, Islanders Hall of Fame induction of Brent Sutter, or any other things with that going forward?
The Islanders have been so much better about these kind of ceremonies. The past 7 or 8 years, since the regime change, for sure, and everything I've read it seems in line with that it was a well done thing. And the thing is that I just wish I could enjoy it more. Right, you're talking about that you have to like sit back and remind yourself, like, these are the New York Islanders. They had a dynasty. They had all these great players play for them, including Brent Sutter, who won 2 Stanley Cups with them after he was drafted. I think he made the Stanley Cup final the first 3 years he played in the league.
Yes.
But it's really an annoying internal struggle to not get dragged back into the present day, which is like, I can't believe I'm letting this team, Casey Zizekas' poor form, and ruin this. Like, I should be able to enjoy the moment and enjoy the Islander nostalgia, the fact that Kenny Janssen's in the building. I should be able to enjoy that more, but It's hard to do it. So I think it's it's like a little bit of a bittersweet situation. It's not too dissimilar to what like these I used to feel from when the team would have little nights like this throughout the seasons. I remember distinctly the first season after the lockout in 05-06. I think they had like something called like the Core 4 night, where those guys were back, and the Islanders were already out of the playoffs at that point, and it was easily the most crowded the Nassau Coliseum was that season, apart from the home opener and maybe some Ranger games. And I just saw the fans who were alive during the dynasty, and they were so happy to revel in it again. And I was sitting there thinking, like, how could you be excited about this right now when the team is looking like this? We just had to trade away Brad Lukowich and Brent Sobel at the trade deadline because we're not going to make the playoffs. The season's over already, and I felt that a little bit of that again, which is, nobody. It sounds petulant and spoiled or whatever, but that's how this team has made me feel, and I hate it.
Yeah.
And the only way out of it is for them to win games. So yeah. And I will say one other thing about Sutter, which is funny, is I remember him coaching the Devils right at the end of the aughts, right? And those teams were good. Lou Lamoriello was the GM. Those teams would get, I think he's coached 2, I'll look it up. 2 seasons with New Jersey, 99 points and 106. And then after that second season, they did exit the playoffs first round, both of those. After that season, he stepped down. I think there was some issues with like family or whatever. He wanted to move back to Alberta, and he took over for the Flames from his brother Daryl. And I remember there was a lot of animosity between Lou and him, and like the front office. And I was that's like what I'm talking about with Lou. I'm like, where's that Lou that I'm sure the two of them got over it, but the Lou who like got pissed off at that kind of shit, and was like had a chip on his shoulder. So that was I didn't I couldn't allow myself not to think about that when I saw that this night was happening when it was happening.
Yeah. I think he mentioned that Lou was his old GM or whatever it was. So I don't know, but yeah, I don't remember any animosity, but it's I could see them kind of getting over it after a while. But yeah, I mean it's they did a good job with that. I remember they had a 92-93 night, I guess is probably in 2003. I want to say when they brought all those guys back out for the 10th anniversary. They might have done it in 2012, 2013 too, for all I know. But yeah, it's good, and I hope that they keep doing stuff like this. And now again, the list is long for who should be in the Islanders Hall of Fame: Chico Resch, Pat LaFontaine, Ziggy Palffy. There's really no wrong answers here, so we'll see. I just don't want to take too long because we like these kinds of nights, and even if they are somewhat of a distraction from the current team, I don't care. I keep distracting me. Just keep doing it. That'd be fantastic. I like seeing that kind of stuff, and especially now if you can bring in more new guys. We talked a little while back about Kyle Oposo being brought back, maybe Franz Nielsen. We'd love to see some of those guys too. Not John Tavares, but a bunch of the other guys maybe he played with that'll get ovation. So okay, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the games upcoming, and then we're gonna do our Master Pens Theater about a seismic shift in the Penguins goaltending that I'm sure you heard about. So meet us on the other side. Thanks. And now a word from our sponsors. First is always VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey now carries a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch featuring our blue and orange brain logo, as well as our Al Arbor and the Island shirts. And as always, our portion of the sales go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly. Okay, so as mentioned before, the Islanders have 3 games coming up this week. Monday against Columbus. I think on Thursday, I might have said it was a Tuesday game because I thought it was, but no, it's actually Monday. So the day you're listening to this, 7:30 start. And then on Friday and Saturday, again, they have back-to-back games, the Flyers again. And then on Saturday, they're going to play the Hurricanes. And all of these games are at 7:30. Then they have one more game in a homestand, which is actually next Tuesday against the Avalanche. One thing we haven't talked about this entire time, we talked about the Columbus game. We could just move on. They're probably going to lose that game. But one thing about the Flyers game we haven't talked about is that Max Sipilkov got suspended. He put that hit on Ryan Poehling early in the game, riled up the Flyers. They came back to win. It looked like a weird hit. Some angles made it look like he hit him in the head. Some looked like kind of shoulder to shoulder. They assessed him a major. They reviewed it. There was no penalty. The Flyers were all over Sipilkov all night long. I hope Poehling is okay. I'm assuming he is. And then they came back and win the game. And so it came out afterwards that Sipilkov was suspended for 3 games, which conveniently includes that Flyers game. And unfortunately, he's going to have to play in Philly. But by then, I think we'll be all right. So this to me is a little bit like the league maybe protecting a guy from retribution. I mean, Sipilkov obviously has no history of violence. It's his first year in the league. The hit did not look that. I even saw Flyers people online being like, Really? 3 games for that? Seriously? Like a little bit surprised. Like maybe something, but not 3 games. So it means that they will not have Siplikov for the rematch. It would be nice if the other Islanders showed up and maybe did something that they didn't do on Thursday in the first place, which is kind of like, stick up for their boy. This would be a good time, to do that, or even in Philly as well. But we'll see. And then Saturday night against the Hurricanes. They've already beaten the Hurricanes once on a Saturday night this year. Maybe they can do it again. Who knows? But that does not look like a promising game either. The Hurricanes haven't been as good this year as they normally are, but they're still better than the Islanders. So forgetting about Columbus for a second, what do you make of these 2 games coming up, particularly the Flyers game in the wake of the Siplikov affair, which, again, seemed to take a lot of Flyers fans by surprise that he ended up getting that supplemental discipline. But at this point, the Islanders won't have him, and they're going to have to find a way to win without him. But, again, maybe you can show that you care about this guy by going out and beating the Flyers, who are, again, a team you're chasing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like exactly what hockey is supposed to be about, which is passion and emotion manifesting in a physical sport. But the Islanders just aren't doing that, so I have my doubts that they will. And the Siplikov decision, in the exact way that situation unfolded is what I mean by it feels like everything has been specifically designed to be irritating this season. Like, okay, I have no idea if that hit was suspendable or not at all. Like, I don't think he went into it with the intention of hitting that Ryan Poehling in the head.
Right.
I don't know if he even did. It didn't seem like he left his feet. It looked like Poehling. It was a weird angle that Siplikov was coming from. He didn't see him coming. He hit his head on the ice, and it was ugly scene afterwards. I get that all, but it doesn't get called a penalty on the ice, and then they say, yeah, this is an Islanders, a rookie who's he's had a lot of penalty minutes this season, but they've all been annoying stick infractions that are driving us insane, not anything else. And they just say, they have 3 games, and it's not even that I'm bent out of shape because, oh man, we need him. We have some big games coming up. It's that it just doesn't make sense to me, and it feels very. It almost feels like somebody just tattled on the island, like that they were trying to just appease the Flyers a little bit. And Tortorella was really, and the Flyers were really mad. We got to make sure that we do this just so they just shut up, get them off our backs. That's what it feels like, and that's irritating, completely irritating. So, I mean, if the Islanders beat Columbus on Monday and go into Philadelphia, that whole day, I'm not going to be excited for the game. I'm just going to be dreading that they've won the game. Obviously, if they win that game against the Flyers, they can sort of see a light to a path forward. And I'm just really going to dread knowing when that puck drops that I'm going to watch this team not recognize that and be like, if we work really hard and try our best to win this game, which is something a 3rd grade CYO team knows, that they can maybe make one last go of this before they have to truly shut it down. When instead they'll just be like, oh man, well, we beat the Blue Jackets on Monday. That's our 1 win this week. So I'm sorry, I don't know what else to tell you. But that's how I'm looking at these games against Philadelphia and Carolina specifically. It's so they beat Columbus, or if they lose to them, then everything just is going to be miserable again. But if they do win that game, even if then they beat the Flyers, once again, I'll just be like, well, I'm assuming the Islanders will come into UBS Arena on Saturday night and say, well, we can't beat the Hurricanes. They're much better than us. What do you expect? Right? Like it sounds so childish to think that way, but that's once again, this team is completely minimized and the way and shrunk the way I think about them to be that petulant. So I'm going to continue to have my tantrum about the Islanders until they do one of 2 things, which is completely detach, play so bad that, or fall so far out that I have to detach myself, or win a bunch of games in a row and make this exciting again. Because right now it's anything but.
I wouldn't beat myself up about feeling that way, because this team has just done that. Like, they haven't given you any reason to believe that they're going to do anything other than win 1 game a week, because that's what they've been doing. So would I be surprised if they won 1 of these games and then lost the other 2? No, I wouldn't. Maybe that's the Flyers game. Maybe they'll be pissed that maybe after a week sitting around thinking about it. Maybe they'll be pissed off enough to beat the Flyers. And then if they do, that all but guarantees a loss to Carolina on Saturday. Now, if they lose to the Flyers again, the Hurricanes are off on Friday. So they'll be coming in, against the Islanders will be playing a rested Hurricanes team, but Saturday has been working for them. So maybe that's enough and they get by. But I don't know. Again, I have no hope that they're going to beat Columbus. So, I just, unless they win all three of these, there's really no reason to get all that excited. Even if they did, like, where does that leave them? 6 points out of a playoff spot, 5 points, and with 15 teams to go or whatever. So they need to do a lot to get us excited. And then the beautiful part is that, like you said, not only do they have a murderer's row after that, actually the week after that is just Colorado, Philly, and then starting February, they got to play Tampa, they got to play Florida, they got to play Winnipeg, all these really, really hard teams. So, and then they have the 2 week break for the the Four Nations face off or whatever the hell it is. So there are a lot more twists and turns coming, and this team does not seem to have rolled with them at all so far. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see and take it game by game. I will say though that there probably won't be an emergency angry podcast this week after the one game against Columbus. We kind of already played that card, but we might, if they lose all three of these or lose that back to back on both games, I could see us a week from now being fairly pissed off going into that final game of the homestand against the Avalanche. So I don't know. This team has not engendered a ton of confidence. So we'll have to see. And it sucks too. Like, it just sucks that, like, had this been a different season and they've been not even like, battling for second or third in the conference or whatever, or the division, I should say, but like, had it been anything else, this week would have been fantastic. You would have had games against the Senators, the Flyers, the Blue Jackets, Flyers again, Hurricanes. Like, this could have been an exciting week in an alternate universe where the Islanders didn't throw away 40 games of the season, right? Like this, right. You almost looked at this and it's like, oh man, this is going to be great. They're going to be battling. This is going to be, teams going after it, but that's just not this team. This is not a team that battles. They don't go after it. No, they don't punch you in the mouth and dare you to punch them back. Like, it just doesn't work. Or even a styles clash. Oh, it's the high flying Senators versus the, defensively grinding Islanders. Like, it wasn't that.
No,
it was just one team wanted to win and the other one did. Like,
yeah. So, and we've seen so many games on the other side, right? Like, where you look at I can remember one against the Sabres during that shortened season. I think it was a game that Matt Barzal scored that really nice through the legs goal. And just watching the Sabres saying they want to be anywhere else but here right now. And that must be so hard to watch as a fan. I'm glad that I don't have to deal with that, because even when the Islanders have been bad, I could tell, like, these guys are fighting. They understand, like, they're professional hockey players. They appreciate the chance to play. Like, Trevor Gillies is out there. He shouldn't be on any NHL team at all, but he is, and he's not taking it for granted. And this team, it just seems to be taking it all for granted right now. And they'll likely do that against Columbus on Monday. They'll just take for granted the fact that they won a game and have a little bit of goodwill back with the fan base because they won a game at home on a Saturday night.
Right.
And they'll get shown up for it because the other team won't take it for granted that they're exceeding expectations wildly. It's just I don't even have, you don't even have faith in them to make it worth your while, which is, I mean, we always joke about the mushy middle and how it's just become a really tired hockey cliche, even though it was just invented like 3 years ago. And there was, that's the last place you want to be, is in the mushy middle. No, it's not. The last place you want to be is when the mushy middle, you're behind the mushy middle, and you can't even, it's trying to catch up to the mushy middle is like you're trying to catch knives. Like, that's the worst place to be. And I think about how the Islanders, like, if pretend for a second that you were a Flyers fan on Thursday night and you were watching the Flyers play the Islanders, and you're just watching. Imagine what your thoughts would have been about the Islanders. Like, wow, that team just doesn't. Yeah, they're not here. They're physically here, but they're just not here. They're in Venice right now at the wedding of the century still. Like, they want to be anywhere else but at UBS Arena, their home rink. The Flyers just completely sucked their life out of them. Yeah. And they did. There's no getting around it. It's embarrassing.
the longest wedding in history. It's been going on for 8 months now. You know, the chain smokers are still playing.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Speaking, we're done with the Flyers now. Let us turn our attention to Pennsylvania's other NHL team, who had a big week of putting their one-time starting goalie Tristan Jarry on waivers and letting him. He was not picked up, obviously. He's in Wilkes-Barre now. Him and his $5 million, I believe, a year contract, a contract we laughed at when they signed it and have only been laughing since. They had enough, and the Penguins finally put him on waivers because they were only 3 points ahead of the Islanders right now, and they must have thought, holy shit, that's not where we want to be. And so this has, perhaps unsurprisingly, brought out some great writing that is perfect for the second ever edition of Master Pens Theater. I can't believe this is only our second time doing this.
I know. When you said that before, I was shocked. I feel like we might have come close to a couple others, but then the Penguins started winning, and we're like, we can't do it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, in reading a bunch of these, and we have two that I'm going to read. You know, the writing isn't necessarily the worst part. The worst part is the sort of like the attitude of it, and the sort of holier than thou attitude that the Penguins have had for a very, very long time. And one person in particular at the head of that attitude is, of course, general manager Kyle Dubas. And we're going to get to him mainly in a second. But let's stick with Tristan Jarry. And both of these articles are from The Athletic. They're both by Josh Yeo, who is prone to this sort of thing. And the first one is about Jarry and plays on all of these things that we love, the illustrious history of the Pittsburgh Penguins. That, of course, never mentions the fact that they almost went bankrupt a couple of times, moved a few times, and were pretty much dead in the water before 1984 for like 15 years. But right now we're talking about Tristan Jarry. And this article is titled, Tristan Jarry Wasn't There When the Penguins Needed Him, which is kind of all you need to know, but we'll continue on. Okay. Dateline, Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania. Already starting. When Tristan Jarry received a 5-year contract from Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins in July 2023, it had already been time for them to start seeing other people. Instead, they stuck it out until January 2025. The divorce papers should have already been mailed by now, but the Penguins placing Jarry on waivers Wednesday is enough of a statement. It's over. Dubas, who took full responsibility for Jarry's bad contract when he spoke to the media Wednesday afternoon at UPMC Lemieux Sports Complex, said it's important to avoid writing obituaries for goalies prematurely. Goaltenders, the general manager said, can surprise you with resurgences. He's right, but I'll say this much. Jarry's time to be a productive Penguins goaltender is through. If he finds success again, it will not be here. The Penguins lost trust in this relationship long ago, and you know what happens after that. I don't know what happens after that. But, this is a great, this whole lead is just a great example of sort of like Penguins melodrama. Dubas, basically admitting that he made a mistake and nobody's saying anything like, well, why'd you do that? Like, again, we're going to get to him in a little bit, but I also love the UPMC Lemieux Sports Complex, which rolls right off the tongue, just like the Ford Performance Center. But yeah, this was great. And, it's funny because like Jarry, really, he could come back anytime, I guess. So I guess I think Yo is trying to tread lightly here because he might end up seeing Tristan Jarry in the Penguins locker room again this season. But he makes it pretty clear that he doesn't want to see him ever again because it's enough already.
Well, first of all, let me address the UPMC Lemieux. I wonder when, and it's obviously the Leafs' fault with the Ford Performance Center
right.
being touted every chance that any writer or president of hockey operations can. It's like Ford has written into their contract of sponsorship that anytime you can't say the word practice facility, you have to say exactly what it's called. Because when did we change in sports media and hockey media going from the Penguins at their practice facility today to to making sure you get the full
Right.
name right. It's insane stuff. But I remember a goal that Josh Bailey scored in the playoffs where Tristan Jarry set
Yep.
him up with a perfect pass in the slot.
My favorite Jari moment ever.
Ever. And I could have told you at that very moment, probably not a goalie I would want to give a 5-year contract to worth 5.75 or whatever it is.
Right.
Given, first of all, the goaltending position, which is ignored by most of people at Josh Yohe's work, and we just know it as volatile, right? It's not the type of goalie I'd want to commit like that to. And but when Kyle Dubas does it to a mediocre goalie, he's playing a little bit. He's playing 3D checkers while we're just sitting here playing chess. I could have told you right away that was going to be a bad contract, but it took this long for them, for everyone to realize it, for Dubas to realize it, and waive him. And no, as you say, like nobody wants to just be like, this guy's not doing a very good job with this team. Yeah, it's if you had made that signing, if the Islanders had signed Tristan Jarry to that contract, let's say, the entire day at The Athletic would have just been 8 to 9. There would have been writers jumping out of the woodwork to stab Lou Lamoriello in the neck.
Right.
Mark Lazarus would descend from Chicago. They're ruining the team I grew up for, Michael Russo said. One man is ruining the game. This is Lou Lamoriello's trying to win the 1986 Stanley Cup again. This is that's the kind of stuff that would be written all day, but because there's Dubas and these guys all think he's friends with them, because he says their first name at a press conference at the Ford Performance Center way back when. It's let's just see how this thing works out. Let's let it shake out. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And of course, every fan in hockey knew we were heading towards this day. But it took 2.5 years to get here, which is honestly impressive from Jarry. What a racket he's running.
Yeah. I mean, this contract was awful from the get-go. And the fact that nobody said anything until January 2025 is as much on you as it was on Tristan Jarry. And I said on Blue Sky at the time, like, who could have possibly thought that the guy who literally handed the puck to an opposing player in double overtime to lose a game would have maybe not, earned that contract? And somebody replied, like, who are you talking about? I'm like, Tristan Jarry just got put on waivers. Who else am I talking about? And just, he never, he just didn't play all that. It wasn't like he earned it even before that. I guess he had an all-star season, but like, did he really earn that either? And so it's just, this guy's never really struck me. And I hate the Penguins. I'm like, you guys, I don't want to know anything about the Penguins, but you watch this guy and you're like, he's not that good. Especially considering this team has had some pretty good goalies in their history. And Yohe brings that up too. And so this is also from the same article. And this I found very funny as well. You need a certain amount of backbone to be this franchise's goalie. Yes, just this franchise. No other franchise requires a goalie that have backbone. Tom Barrasso probably had too much backbone, to the point that he's widely disliked. But Barrasso was tough as nails and didn't wilt when the games mattered most. Marc-Andre Fleury can fool you with his cheery disposition, but underneath the laughs and smiles is a competitive warrior with few equals. Matt Murray's star faded quickly because of injuries, but his steely eyes will always have their place in Penguins lore. Jarry isn't wired like those guys. That's not a criticism. Those three are franchise giants. Standing on a platform with them was never going to be easy. Okay, so standing on a platform with Tom Barrasso was never going to be easy. Probably because Tom Barrasso would probably punch you and get you off the platform, but I just kind of found it funny. It's just funny that, like, again, yeah, being a goalie is hard. Like, nobody's disputing that, but like, to pretend like being the goalie for the Penguins is any harder than it is being goalie for the Columbus Blue Jackets or the Utah whatevers or the Anaheim Ducks is stupid. Like, every goalie for any team is hard. Only Tom Barrasso, Marc-Andre Fleury, and Matt Murray matter. Nobody's. Where's Jean-Sebastian Aubin in this conversation?
Yeah, Andy Chiodo.
Right. Andy Chiodo, Michel Dion, who played against the Islanders in the 70s. So I just thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah, and there's a select group of teams that always get this treatment,
Right.
and I feel like the Penguins, just because of Crosby, have like nudged their way. The veneration for the original six, right? Like we all know and are sick of it, and it's really annoying. But then there's like the group of teams that are not part of the original six, but you wouldn't be crazy to think that they were, like the Flyers, for example. I bet you there's a lot of people that if you ask hockey fans, if you said, hey, who are the original six teams, they would probably name the Flyers, a good portion of them, because of the way they're treated. And the Penguins aren't an original six team, but they're treated with the same veneration because Sidney Crosby is going to end up on a piece of currency in Canada one day if these guys have anything to say about it. So it's really tough to be a goaltender for the Pittsburgh Penguins because you're competing with Matt Murray's steely eyes. I like that he didn't mention that he won 2 Stanley Cups. He went right to his eyes.
Right.
And of course, we're having a successful our programs here. The Masters Leap Theater franchise that's now spun off into other segments is successful because we have callbacks. We got a callback to the Michael Russo mysteries with the Marc-Andre Fleury, his cheery disposition or whatever. Right. I just don't understand how these guys can get away with writing this kind of stuff. And it's not once in a while, right?
Right.
It's every time that these guys write my column on Twitter, which is once a week or twice a week. It's always this ham-handed. It's always this ham-handed. Always. And I always do this, and I don't mean to do it to disrespect Andrew Gross at all, but can you imagine Andrew Gross writing about Rick DiPietro's steely eyes?
Right. Or Ilya Sorokin's steely eyes,
Yeah.
No. It
No.
doesn't work that way.
No, that's not how most people do it, and I don't think it's what most people want. But this outlet has given these writers the keys to the car. You can get as weird as you want, and that's infiltrated into other organizations because they see, oh, man, if Josh Yohe can write about Matt Murray's steely eyes, that means I can write about Austin Matthews and a fake 8-year-old kid that I've imagined up, right? Like if he can get away with it, I can get away with it. So it's it's endemic now to the hockey media sphere.
Right.
And once again, I just don't understand how there's not. It seems like once every 4 or 5 months we get the article, and hell, like there's definitely been reasons to do it. Of Lou must go from people who aren't part of like attached to the Islanders. They're not like the Islanders beat writers or anything. They're just the kind of weird quasi national writers that this outlet seems to employ. And nobody's like, hey, maybe we should get. I actually think it was Frank Saravalli wrote something about Kyle Dubas, so he was the first one to do it, but he's not really part of that clique. That nobody's brave enough to say, hey, this isn't really. He's not really doing a very good job, and the fact that he had to waive the goalie that he signed, a 5-year, 5 point whatever deal, is probably a clue that he's not. So, anyways, master stuff from Yohe, and it's I like you said, I'm shocked. It's only been 2. This is only the second episode ever.
Well, it's not over yet.
It's not
because
yet.
We have a second article from Yohe, and it's interesting that you bring up both Kyle Dubas and Sidney Crosby because this little excerpt here has to do with both. So this is from another article after the waiving. It says after waiving Tristan Jarry, what's next for the Penguins? And it's mostly the usual, like, what are they going to do? They got this guy Joel Blomqvist has been called up, and it's funny because Yohe talks at length to longtime Tristan Jarry teammate Erik Karlsson, guy who's only been Jarry's teammate for a year and a half. He's the one doing all the talking about, what this means, the waiving of him means. Not the guys who played in the playoffs with him, just this guy who basically still just kind of showed up. I mean, does Karlsson even have a home in Pittsburgh? Doesn't he still live in the hotel? Feels like he probably should be. But in any event, at the very bottom is so he ends up talking about like what this means and what this means for next season, and like how the Penguins are gonna make it out of this, and then what are they gonna do next season? Because it's always about the Penguins aren't gonna be down for long. Don't worry, they're gonna be back. It's just this is a momentary blip on their their radar, although, we're working on 2.5 seasons now of being out of the playoffs. But in the bottom, in talking about this rebuild, Yoey has a point here that says the Crosby factor. And this is all about sort of Dubas and Crosby and what that means. And so what he writes is, Dubas has never used the word rebuild. That's by design. Fenway Sports Group does not want to publicly commit to a rebuild, believing it would send the wrong message to fans in Pittsburgh, especially season ticket holders, whom FSG would like to retain, and potential regional and national sponsors. FSG and Dubas also don't want to alienate Crosby, whose 2-year extension begins next season but is structured to pay him most of the money before he plays a game in year 2 of the contract. Crosby has said repeatedly he wants to play only for the Penguins. He'll be 38 at the start of next season. It's possible he won't have won a playoff series in 7 years or played in one in 3. He doesn't want to rebuild. He also doesn't want the Penguins to be mired in mediocrity, which could happen if Dubas doesn't make more moves focused on the future. Okay, this is not a poorly written thing. However, has Dubas made a lot of moves focused on the future? Like signing Tristan Jarry, signing Ryan Graves, signing Erik Karlsson, are all these moves for the future? I don't know. It don't sound like, it sounds like moves for the present that haven't really worked out all that well. So I just kind of found it funny that, again, Dubas has this amazing ability to get away from any criticism at all. Like somehow all of this is his fault, and yet somehow none of it is his fault. And that just reminds me of something you love to bring up, which is that he literally sat at a table in Toronto without a contract and said, one thing you won't see is me popping up next week working for another team. And that's exactly what happened. He popped up a week later working for another team. So not only is this guy kind of a fraud, he's also a liar. So I just find it funny that, this is definitely all Dubas' fault, but he's the guy working hard to fix it.
Not only did he lie, but he was lauded in that press conference for being genuine and raw. There were writers falling over themselves to like sob at his feet, being like, that was the most raw, emotional, honest interview I've ever seen. And it turns out it was completely the opposite. And nobody, Chris Johnston, who was certainly one of them, I think he had like it was the thing, the Shroud of Turin. He wiped Dubas's face that night and has like a Shroud of Dubas there from that day. Nobody stuck their hands up and said, oh, by the way, turns out that guy lied to us and we were all wrong. And he's carried that cloak of, invisibility, or that you can't criticize the guy into Penguin land, because he stepped into a rough situation because there was this team was trying to win with Sidney Crosby and had some contracts, whatever. That doesn't like absolve him of signing Ryan Graves, signing Tristan Jarry. I don't think Ron Hextall was like, oh, by the way, you got to put in writing that when I get fired, Kyle Dubas is going to sign Tristan Jarry to a 5-year extension. And he's also going to sign Ryan Graves to a 6-year deal. And he's going to make a trade for Erik Karlsson that was universally lauded at the time, and has now looks really bad, and nobody's like, oh, we were wrong about that one. So and as you say, like he keeps getting credit about Dubas, he's trying to get like young, cheap players who can help the Penguins now and in the future. So is every other GM. So is he's not the only. That's not some like code he's cracked. He traded for that guy Philip Tomasino. That's the kind of player he likes. He likes these young guys like Cody Glass and Philip Tomasino and Kevin Hayes. What? He also did that. So it doesn't make any sense to me. It drives me insane that this guy can just get away with it like this. And I'm sure that Eric Tulsky will end up with the same kind of like protective bulletproof vest. But it's he's not doing a very good job, and I'll be the first person to say it. Kyle Dubas is probably like a D- in his Penguins career, but ask anyone else, and it's just not his fault. He's I wish anytime I failed a class or a test or something, I could have just been like, but the guy before me, didn't do a very good job, so it was kind of a tough situation for me. Such bullshit.
I mean, what would everybody's opinions of Eric Tulsky be if Jack Roslovic didn't have like 20 goals this season or whatever. Probably be a lot different. By the way, Freddie Anderson, I think was either placed on IR or back from IR.
Yeah, he was back
this week. All right.
Yeah, Freddie's back, and the Hurricanes. But what's great is they got off to that great start. All whatever, credit to them. But they've been largely mediocre for like the past couple month and a half or so, and nobody's like, maybe they're not that good. Which is, once again, we're talking about like how irritating the season's been, that the Hurricanes are they had one good stretch to start, and they're going to get tons of credit for being what they are, and we know exactly where they're going to end up. Like I can tell you right now that this team with Dustin Tokarski in net is going to have to play a very important game against the New York Rangers, and they're going to lose.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt a lot. And speaking of the Rangers too, one last thing. I know we're still in Master Penn's Theater, but I do want to note that they almost traded for JT Miller, but did it.
Yeah.
So to add to the infuriating part of how irritating it's been with the Rangers, apparently it was like Lafreniere going to Vancouver with someone else, and they somehow get out of that. All I know is that if the Islanders or 29 other teams traded for JT Miller, it would work out terribly, like so bad, cripple the franchise forever. But the Rangers, they'll get Miller for a great, pennies on the dollar type thing. For some reason the Canucks will like retain. He'll score the lights out, and next season, when the contract becomes an albatross, they'll just trade it to the Ducks for nothing. it's how it's gonna go.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm glad you brought that up, but we should save it for possibly Ranger Peace Theater next week. Yeah. So we'll see if
next week on the Ranger Peace Theater, we'll talk about JT Miller. I'm sure there's gonna be some great stuff.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
And on that cliffhanger, we can wrap up Master Penn's Theater.
This is the first cliffhanger we've ever had.
Yeah.
I just want to shout out, by the way, longtime listener Chad, who may or may not be the only Islanders fan in all of North Dakota. I've met him before. He's a great listener and a great dude. And he actually had a great idea for something along the lines of, it would be sort of a combination of Master Penn's Theater and the Michael Russo mysteries. It would be the Rob Rossi mysteries. We would do Rob Rossi, kind of style mysteries with his. But I was going over a bunch of his tweets. Rob Rossi's he's lost a bit of the juice. He's not quite as histrionic and dramatic as he used to be. It's unfortunate. Maybe he's just a little bit tired of this Penguins era. But there was once a time when he was a guaranteed laugh riot. Especially his tweets about the Penguins were a lot of fun. But great idea, Chad. Maybe we'll get to it at some point. But Rossi's going to have to come up from where he's at right now. We get some classic Rossi histrionics before we can do a Rob Rossi mysteries. But thank you very much, by the way, to everybody who got back to us about the Michael Russo mysteries, which seem to have gone over very well. Heard a lot of great feedback on that. Also, people seem to have really liked our emergency episode. That's the most feedback we've gotten on an episode all year has been on the one where we just basically tore the Islanders to shreds for an hour. So I'm glad people enjoyed it. Got a lot of emails and DMs about it. So I'm glad you liked it. That was pretty fun. But this episode we can bring to a close. The Islanders won a game. Congratulations. But they still have a long way to go before they can get back into this thing. So we'll see what happens this week. We'll be talking next week and see where they're at after these 3 games. Become a member at patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety for ad-free episodes and bonus content. We're going to have a Country Club Atmosphere coming up this week. So check that out. Also, brand new episode of Weird Islanders later this week about, spoiler alert, my least favorite goalie in Islanders history. So you'll find out who that is when you listen to the episode of Weird Islanders. It came out. Honestly, it's one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. And it's making me smile just thinking about how great it came out. So I can't wait for people to hear that. That will be later this week. Join also to get free announcements and our weekly release calendar. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible.com, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a review where you can. Our theme song is Morning Haze by Family Dinner. Listen for more of their music on Spotify and check out their album, God Looks Out for Fools. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for us up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety Podcast are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Shop AvengersIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. I know you've been shopping at VintageIceHockey.com because you got a sweet new Long Island Jaws hat
Yes.
that I need to get as well. So, Kevin, get ready for an email because I'm going to need one of those things. But any final thoughts on the big Ring of Honor win against the quote-unquote big Ring of Honor win against the Sharks? Or I don't want to say it's a big week coming up because, again, they're just so far out of things. Right. It could be big if they win all three of them.
That's a perfect way to end it, right? It's only a big week if the Islanders make it a big week.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just more of the same, and we'll be having the same conversation that we've had for the better part of 3 years again on Sunday.
Oh, God. I'm so sick of these conversations. I really am. I'm tired of these same thing. So, but we'll see. But it's up to them. Yep. It's up to them. It's up to you guys. So thank you for listening. But either way, whatever happens, we'll be back next week and we'll talk it out. All right. So thanks for listening and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.